Often when we sit down to evaluate our worship services, we think about the technical things like flow and lighting and timing. Did the skit work? The slides appear on time? Did the music go too long? And while these things deserve some of our time, I'd encourage us also to include and address some of the big questions and purposes of the worship service. The plan. What was our service plan? Our roadmap. Was it a theological plan? Did the order in which we did things make theological sense? Did we observe the biblical pattern of revelation and response, or the historical plan of word and table, or some other well thought out plan or pattern? Did we presume to respond to God before hearing from Him or about Him? For my money, I like to have the first and last words in a service be from the lips of God Himself. It's just something to consider and think about. Second criteria, I think, is the story. Whose story was emphasized in worship? Did we retell the story of God? Did we rehearse His story of creation and resurrection and reconciliation and the coming kingdom? Or did we emphasize the people's stories? Did we celebrate the whole story of God, or just the parts that we like? Did we invite and expect our people to insert their individual stories and testimonies into God's grand story, to embed themselves into something much bigger than themselves? Or did they leave church today thinking their story was the primary one? Third criteria, I think, is the action. Where was the action happening? Was the action happening on the platform or with the people? Was our service presentation or participation? Are these gathered believers a congregation or an audience? If we say that we gather for corporate worship, was our service truly corporate? And was it truly service? Did the people do most of the work, or was the real action happening on the platform? Few questions I try to ask myself in this area. Could most of the service have been pulled off if the congregation had somehow been locked out of the church that day? How much time did the congregation spend doing as opposed to simply watching? Did the people engage more than one or two of their senses as they performed this delightful work of worship? In other words, this morning, did we do more than just sing them, preach them, take their money, and send them home? Fourth criteria, what is the result of our service? Did the people recognize and accept the responsibility of their own offering to God, or did they allow it to be done for them? Did our people leave commenting on how the people up front did, or asking God how they themselves did? And did they leave with a reminder or a mission? Again, I know we have to deal with the technical pieces of the worship service, but don't just evaluate the service by its parts, the worship set, or the sermon, or the announcements, or the offering. Think of the part that all of these pieces play in the acting out of corporate worship. Tie each and every announcement to your mission statement. Turn the offering back into an act of worship. Transform this meet and greet thing into an acknowledgement of Christ in others. Evaluate the entire service as an offering to God. It's all worship, or at least it should be.